Realme's target market is India, so unfortunately some of their products go under the radar here in Europe and the US. It's a shame because they've got some really interesting earbuds in their portfolio, packed with features and a glossy app. And I'll be taking you through one of those products today, the Buds Air 3S. I got hold of these towards the tail end of last year for around the €27/$29 mark. The hybrid design, which isn't quite a stem, will certainly please those who don't like the aesthetics of stem-based buds. But it's not just the design, they actually come with an impressive set of features such as multi-point connectivity, customizable EQ within the Realme app. They support Bluetooth 5.3 and Dolby Atmos. They have a 4 Mic AI ENC and give you 30 hours total playback, as well as having that quick charge support, giving you 5 hours playback from just 10 minutes charge. And just like the release itself, the unboxing experience is quite understated. The key features are listed on both sides, and you've got a very realistic representation of the buds and case on the front. Thanks to video editing, you don't get to see the struggles of me trying to open this from the top. As you can see from the toggle strap there, the box is designed to be opened from the bottom. Here you get your first glimpse of the charge case, and it's held in a thoughtful, albeit not especially environmentally friendly enclosure. At least I can rest assured that would have protected it as it was bouncing around distribution centres in the Netherlands for a few months at the tail end of last year. The semi-transparent tinted lid on this case definitely makes it quite unique in terms of the design. We'll go through the pros and cons of the case later on in the review. Flip open the enclosure and you are greeted by the rest of your accessories. You've got spare tips, a short yellow USB A to C charge cable, you've got a warranty card and also a user manual. I think this is the European edition because it's in 7 different European languages, but it's not in Indian, the target market, and it's not in Chinese anywhere either, which is where Realme are from. So it's likely they sell different editions in different markets. The charge cable is probably the highlight of the accessories. The bright yellow branding won't appeal to everyone, and you could argue it's a little bit short for everybody's needs, but in terms of the quality it's much higher than what you tend to expect when you're buying budget TWS. So back to the charge case, and Realme have gone for quite a novel design with a semi-transparent tinted cover on the top and a matte black finish to the bottom. At the front you've got a difficult to see reset and pairing button and a lip, although the size of the case makes it very difficult to operate with one hand. Flip it open and the Dare to Leap slogan is there jumping out at you. I've seen some reviews claim that this is tacky, and I can see where they're coming from, but it's not something that really bothered me. The hinge and the lid in general, in fact the case in general, actually can feel a little bit cheap and plasticky. The hinge at least has a bit of friction to it, and the case has hall switch mode as well, so it means you can pop it on the desk and flip it open without taking the earbuds out in order to initiate pairing and connection. There's also a battery indicator LED right in the center there. This turns to red when the remaining battery in the case is less than 20%. It's not as helpful as some red, amber, green schemes, but it's still useful nevertheless. Biggest problem with the case really is the construction. As you can see here, a couple of months on, you've got some blemishes on the matte areas in particular. It's scuffed up quite badly in the pocket with keys and other bits and bobs. Realme have even included what looks like a screen protector on the top of the lid. Whilst it may be tempting to remove this, don't give in because your case will look even worse. In the cockpit you've got a cutout which is in the shape of the buds, and this helps keep them secure when you're moving around. The magnets are pretty strong and have a satisfying click to them. There's no wireless charging, it's only via USB-C cable, and the socket is located at the rear. It can take up to 2 hours for a full charge, but the case has a fantastic warp charge feature where 10 minutes of power will give you 5 hours of playtime. This is one of the best that I've tested in TWS so far. Note that when you plug the case in, you'll see that the LED starts to pulse rather than staying solid, although once it reaches 100% it will be solid green. The case gives you an additional 3 full charge cycles. Realme advertise up to 28 hours, and provided you're not using too many features like gaming mode or making too many calls, I found I was getting not far off 6 hours per full cycle, giving you a total of 24 hours, so it's just a little way off what Realme advertise, but it's not to be sniffed at. Dimensions of the case are a little bit odd It's not quite a square, a 58mm by 53mm with 27mm to the height. The weight is just over 47 grams, so it's reasonably compact and portable in a similar vein to something like the case of the Samsung Galaxy Buds Live. That means it's okay in your coat pocket or in a handbag, but it's definitely not okay in your skinny jeans. Having Google Fastpair and Fast Connect on this device is a big bonus, especially at this price. It means once the earbuds are associated with your Google account, there's no need to repair and reconnect on future devices. Instead of having to do the process manually, you get a pop-up like this which takes you through the process very quickly and seamlessly. The device details screen means you can see very easily how much battery is remaining in each of the buds and the case. This is particularly a big benefit if you don't want to install the Realme Link app on your phone for any reason. First impressions of the design and build are quite positive. The buds sport a mini stem style shape which is conveniently sufficient for grasping when you want to remove them from your ears without the overall stem aesthetic, which I know a lot of buyers don't like when they're selecting TWS. The frosted black silver finish looks really nice. There's no garish colours and no overt branding. Everything is delightfully rather subtle. Admittedly, they are a fingerprint magnet, although they have stood the test of time better than the case. On the inside, you've got charge connectors which make direct contact with your skin, so if you have nickel allergies, etc., you might want to look elsewhere. You've also got a couple of openings, one a pressure release cavity to improve comfort and acoustic performance, and an ambient mic to work with the AI ENC to improve your voice calls. The buds also feature a shark fin removable wingtip, which only comes in one size unfortunately, and it's too short to offer any kind of support to the fit. At least it does work well with the aesthetics in terms of the contours of the average ear. And the fit and the comfort are generally pretty good. They're IPX5 water resistant as well, so no issues wearing them out in the rain or in the gym. The gradient to the shape of the buds, coupled with a thin oval nozzle, means the Buds Air 3S are neither as invasive as something like the Edify Neo Buds Pro or Soundpeats Live Classic, but don't induce the pressure that something like the larger nozzled Huawei FreeBuds Pro 2 do. So in terms of comfort and stability, Realme have struck a reasonable balance here. I did find that after a couple of hours they would start to ache my ears a little bit, but this isn't really anything new for me with in-ear buds. In terms of how they look, the aesthetics are pretty good, and once again, if you don't like that stem look, then these will be right up your street. Moving into the sound, and whilst you do have the ability to customize the EQ within the Realme Link app, and we'll talk more about the app later on in the review, there are also 4 default presets. You don't need to be an audio engineer to see how the presets alter the sound, and indeed the names of the presets, deep bass and pure bass, probably give it away anyway. Bass response, even with the original sound signature, is still somewhat elevated, not to the point it completely engulfs the sound like it does on those 2 latter presets. But whilst the bass comes in quite fast with the original preset, it's not especially accurate still, so you can imagine how that turns out with those 2 other presets. Even so, the default tuning is punchy, energetic and fun. There's an emphasis on that sub bass we mentioned. It's definitely tuned for the consumer in mind rather than the audiophile. As you would expect, detail retrieval leaves a little bit to be desired. The lower mid-range is recessed to try and mitigate bleed before you get a sharp rise between 1 and 2.5K, and that certainly helps female vocals sound very prominent, although male vocals can sound a little lost sometimes, especially on R&B tracks where you have heavier bass lines. The peaks in the trebles work well at bringing out the texture in cymbals and crispiness to snares. Although the detail and definition do lack a little bit of refinement, there's still cohesion to the energy, which makes the Buds Air 3S an enjoyable companion for most music styles that only really suffers a little clutter on more complex tracks. I think it's worth reminding yourself when you're listening with the Buds Air 3S that it's an 11mm single dynamic driver, you're using the AAC codec, and these are $35–40 earbuds, so temper your expectations a little bit. Whilst they lack the smoothness of something like the QCY HT05 Mellow Buds, in terms of just a fun, energetic TWS, they hit most of the right notes. And besides, Realme give you a 6-band custom EQ to tailor that sound to your own personal preference. So whilst they aren't the most refined sounding, I think you're getting a lot of value for your €25. Now, on the subject of the app, I've had a couple of notifications actually that there's new firmware versions. I recorded this video when it updated to 0.59, although we're on 0.61 now. That's more firmware updates than I've had with the majority of my budget TWS, so it's really refreshing to see that Realme are actually supporting this product. And the update process is very self-explanatory. It tells you everything that you need to do. Keep the buds outside the charging case and don't move away from that page. Firmware updates pretty quickly, takes about 2 minutes, so about 10 minutes quicker than One More's products, for example. Relatively painless, and once you're done, just replace the buds into the case, reopen it again, and use a Google Fast Connect. It will immediately connect to your device. It will also prompt you to open up the Realme Link app. If you've never used the Realme app before, it reminds me a little bit of Huawei's AI Life app. Here you can see that the Buds Air 3S are listed under my device, but you can also sample what other devices are like in terms of their functionality by using the virtual experience, as you can see below there. Anyway, tap on the Realme Buds Air 3S and you're taken into the main control screen. On the main screen, you've got an indication of how much battery is remaining in your left and right buds, as well as the case at the top. Moving down, you've got the sound effects section where you can either choose one of those 4 presets which we talked about in the previous section, or custom EQ. And there's some nice features here. Whilst you only get a 6-band equalizer, it is throughout the entire frequency range. Not only that, but you can save essentially your own presets. This adds a level of versatility to the Buds Air 3S that you don't typically see on budget TWS, so a really nice feature that Realme have implemented here. You've also got a volume enhancer toggle. This is really useful on iPhone. They tend to be pretty loud anyway, so you won't necessarily need that. On all 3 of the Android devices I tried without volume enhancement switched on, I found that you were around 90% for enjoyable volume, whereas if you toggle it on, then around 65 to 70% is absolutely fine. And it feels like a token gesture mentioning it here, but dual device connection is toggleable here, if that's a word. It worked flawlessly for me, connected to a Windows laptop and an Android phone. When your phone rings, it will interrupt whatever you're listening to on Windows. You don't have the ability to select which device you're using like you do with the OnePlus Buds Pro or Huawei FreeBuds Pro 2 or Soundcore Liberty 3 Pro, for example. Even so, just purely the ability to connect to 2 devices simultaneously is going to be really attractive for a lot of consumers on a budget. You've also got the ability to customize your controls, and it will save these customizations to the bud. Double tap, triple tap, and touch and hold can all be customized independently on the left and the right bud, and there's no constraints over which function you want that control to perform. I found the controls to be very responsive as well. Here you can see I've got double tap set to play and pause. Push and hold the left bud is set to reduce the volume, and pushing and holding the right bud increases the volume respectively. Remember, these are the controls that I've customized myself within the app. Here I've set left triple tap to cycle the track backwards and right triple tap to cycle it forwards. You do actually have one constraint, which is holding both buds down at the same time. You're only allowed to select that as gaming mode. You're just going to have to take my word that it selected gaming mode here, but it did no problems. So that's your lot with the Realme app. On the negative side, you do have to have your email address and a password set up to log in, which I know a lot of people don't necessarily like. But on the positive side, it is a very polished effort which gives you lots of features and functionality. So now we're going to take you through a few call quality samples. In particular, the outdoor ones were recorded a few months ago during the winter months here in the UK. So you've got a real mixture of wind, rain, and all those environmental noises which will make your commute difficult, particularly during those winter months. Okay, so now we're testing the Realme Buds Air 3S in absolute silence. So this is the kind of indoor environment where you've been able to reduce all of those ambient sounds around you. Something like maybe you have an interview or an important call to make, and you've been able to find a quiet meeting room where you just dial in and talk, and you haven't got to worry about your voice coming across over and above those environmental sounds which are going on around you. What we're looking for here is the weight, tonality, and clarity of your voice, and make sure that it's conveying your voice in the best possible way. So again, the Realme Buds Air 3S, this time with multiple sources of simulated background noise
introduced into the scene, replicating what you would expect in a very noisy coffee shop. I've got two Transmart Bang Mini speakers paired. I've also got a sound bar to try and give us close to 360-degree noise in the scene, which is closer to what you would expect in those kinds of environments, like a coffee shop, school or college corridor, or a busy office. You've got a hell of a lot of noise going on around you, and you're just trying to make yourself heard on your voice calls or your voice notes. I just checked the dB meter reading, and it's somewhere between 65 and 85 dBA, fluctuating as and when I'm speaking or when you've got particularly noisy elements of the scene. So in terms of the volume level, it's actually probably louder than a coffee shop in the UK in January, where people are still waiting for their payday. Okay, we are testing the Realme Buds Air 3S for outdoor call performance. I'm at a very busy intersection here in Surrey, one of my usual stomping grounds for testing TWS mic performance, because you've got so many different sounds which are commensurate with what you would expect to hear on your daily commute into work, college, school, etc. The sounds I'm talking about are engine noises. I'm on a railway bridge, so periodically you've got trains going past, you've got wind noise, there's a little bit of surface residue, so you'll get a little bit of splashes as well. But as I said, we're trying to recreate the sounds of your daily commute. I'm interested to hear how the environmental noise reduction is working on the Realme Buds Air 3S. Okay, so we are testing the Realme Buds Air 3S outdoors to see what the call quality is like when you're out and about doing your daily commute to work or college, something like that. I've chosen to record this outside a train station, and as you can probably tell, the weather's pretty horrendous. So we've got a little bit of wind noise, we've got a little bit of rain splashes, and also we've got the kind of wind trap that the train creates as well, and that engine noise. Trying to replicate exactly what it would sound like on that commute, as I mentioned previously. This is the first outdoor test. I would imagine it's going to be tough, even with environmental noise reduction, to cope with that barrage of sound which you've got going on around.
So I hope you enjoyed my review of the Realme Buds Air 3S. Do put your comments in the comment section below. For me, it's definitely a viable option if you're looking for a low cost, well built and well designed bud with a decent app and lots of configuration options, which also gives you that benefit of multi-point connectivity, especially if you're on that sub $40, even $30 budget. If you're lucky and you can pick up a deal on AliExpress. Default sound signature is a little bass heavy, but that can of course be tweaked. And whilst the imaging and resolution falls a little bit behind what you could get if you spend maybe over $100, it's still very respectable for the price. If active noise cancellation isn't particularly important to you and you're looking for decent all-rounders that give you reasonable audio and some control over that with their custom EQ, good app experience, decent performance on calls, good battery life and quick charge, then look no further than the Realme Buds Air 3S. You wouldn't buy them over and above some of the premium offerings, but in terms of what they give you for the money, it's a very good option if you're on a budget. Thanks again for watching. It's ReganCipher signing off.